Diablo 4's biggest topic, want, and probably need is itemization. And if you have been following the news, you know that Season 4, which is next season, will have the changes for itemization. So that has been much sought after. However, one of the things that people have mentioned when it comes to itemization is crafting. Well, while it's a small edition, Diablo 4 did just release its first, not variant, but first edition towards having crafting in the game. So if you remember this tweet a while ago, Adam Fletcher came out and said, just friendly PSA from the Diablo 4 team here, hang on to unused Uber Uniques. The team has some plans for the future patch, which we'll share soon, but figure this is a heads up warranted. So people were speculating, okay, they're probably doing something in relation to Uber Uniques. Maybe you can swap them around and what have you. And that's more or less what's happening, but they're adding it in a crafting style. In fact, if you go to the patch notes here, they just launched these, and you can see that Uber Unique crafting has now been added to the game. So this is sort of the very first crafting that we have towards these itemizations other than enchanting, for instance. So Uber Unique items are highly sought after. With Season of the Blood, we have introduced target farming Uber Uniques with Uber Durio to give players another source of acquiring this type of item. However, we want to give players increased autonomy in obtaining their desired Uber Unique by addressing feedback that expressed how acquiring duplicate or undesired Uber Unique items lessens that feeling of triumph. The new system empowers players to make use of duplicate and undesired Uber Uniques by salvaging them for a new resource which can be used to eventually craft an Uber Unique of their choosing. Additionally, the chance for Uber Unique items to drop everywhere but an Uber Durio encounter has been increased. So if you didn't know, I believe it's level 83 monsters plus actually have a chance of dropping Uber Uniques. It's not just through Uber Durio. Uber Durio is the more common way of getting them, but it looks like they're increasing it outside of Durio, so maybe you'll actually see these drops. So first things here, Uber Unique items can now be salvaged to provide a new resource, the Resplendent Sparks. Players can bring 5 of these sparks to the Alchemist and transmute an Uber Unique of their choice. So effectively, you can go get the other Uber Uniques you don't want, crunch them. You crunch enough of the ones you don't want, you get the one that you do want, for instance. So the Refine Resources tab at the Alchemist has been renamed Transmute, and the option to craft an Uber Unique item can be found under that tab. Note that the preview window for crafting an Uber Unique won't display the item's affix, and the drop chance of Uber Uniques acquired outside of Uber Durio encounters has been increased. The rest of this patch note is just bug fixes and some miscellaneous changes. So this one's kind of cool. The Curse Shrine now gives you the bonus at the start, so when all the minions spawn, you actually have that bonus. Now, this patch notes are available, but the update won't be out until February 13th, which was originally the date that was announced for the Gauntlet, for instance. So it could be assumed that the dates got mixed up and maybe he announced the wrong patch, for instance, or they moved the Gauntlet back by one patch, one or the other. But we know that the 13th is actually when we're going to be getting item crafting. It's actually kind of cool that they launched this before the Gauntlet, because the Uber Uniques are something that now should be, you can grind them. It's going to be a lot of grinding, but if you grind enough of them, you can basically farm and get the Uber Unique you want before the Gauntlet actually comes out. So that's pretty cool. Really, I think the major point about this is that if they're slowly starting to add crafting of items into the game, this is probably some sort of test for the Season 4 itemization. More methods of crafting items, modifying items, etc. would be well received by people. And one of the points that I commonly see, I mean, this is asked for a long time here, is going to be loot filters. For instance, I've been playing Last Epoch recently on stream, and the loot filter in that is significant. One of the counterpoints I've seen people make is that, well, they're probably not going to add a loot filter directly before changing all of the itemization in the game in Season 4. So I'm hoping with Season 4, we get more of this crafting implementation, because I think crafting would be a W. We get significant itemization changes, and then now that they have all the itemization changes, crafting, and all that done, then they add the loot filter in the game. If we got all of that related to items, that big item chunk of updates in Season 4 could be a banger. Reception seems mixed, though it was basically just announced. If you pull up Reddit, for instance, some people are saying that the Uber drop rate outside of Durio would be nice. Some people like the good change. Some people say that it's only an in-game change, which, yes, basically the game needs in-game changes. I think the game's in a healthy enough state from like the early to mid-game. Adding more additions to the game, crafting, what have you, to in-game players would help keep those players around longer. So I think that that's probably the correct focus. But more than likely, if I had to guess, what we've seen time and time again is they add something into the live game as a way to test it, like AOZ, for instance. You add things into the game as a way to test different systems to see player reception and also to test bugs, etc., things like that. And then they implement other things into the game based upon that testing. I would assume AOZ was one of these. I would assume crafting is going to be one of these things as well. And this doesn't say that it's just a seasonal update. This should be going into the core game, is my understanding. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of responses like this one, which this is not the answer to the bad itemization. And then my answer to that is basically what this guy responded, which it's not meant for that. I think this is preparation, but this is definitely not the answer to itemization. So if you're watching this video, you haven't been playing Diablo 4, and you're looking at this and thinking, this doesn't change the way items work for me, you're right. It's probably not meant to. Again, I think it's testing and only to help you acquire uber unique chase items. This isn't crafting in its fullest state. This is the first edition of that. However, I don't think this is going to change a lot in terms of the people that enjoy the core gameplay. Because you can craft an uber unique doesn't mean you're probably going to go farm 5 of the ones that you don't. We don't know how many sparks you get each. Let's say it's 2, 3, okay? People probably aren't going to go farm uber uniques they don't want if they weren't farming the uber uniques anyway in order to get the one that they do want. Mostly because what people don't like in its current iteration is farming things like living steel, and I think the people who choose not to do that gameplay loop aren't going to come back to do that gameplay loop because of the uber unique crafting. So this doesn't solve the solution to endgame. It is just a nice, good addition. So for today, not a huge deal, just kind of cool. Now for the rest of the evening, I'm going live. Actually, I have a podcast today with Ghazi as well as Kriparian, and we're going to be talking, I'm sure, all things ARPG related. So thanks so much for watching the video, and I'll see you on the live stream. And then I'm going to be playing Last Epoch. I just started dipping my toe in the Last Epoch, and it's been pretty fun so far. So if you're interested in that, the link to the live is in the description and the pinned comment down below.